Hey folks, Randy Newberg here with another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. Sorry I'm delayed a week or so in getting this out. I didn't intend for it to be that way, but it's just how life has been. Thank you guys for following along, listening, and being patient. And today we're going to have a guest who I've got to know quite a bit over the last year. Spent a week deer hunting with him down in Arizona in January. Had his wife, Hillary, on the Marriage Advice podcast here a couple months ago. But he is, some people, you get to know them. And the more you know about them, the more intriguing they are about how they hunt and their success and their approach to hunting and other things in life. And Ryan Lampers is one of those guys who has really impressed me, and just his approach, his demeanor, how patient, diligent, and just methodical he is about everything in his life, it seems like, including his hunting, is intriguing to me. So I asked Ryan, I said, you and I keep telling these stories about spring bear hunting and mule deer hunting. What do you say we get on the podcast and we record some of those stories? So that's what we're going to do here. As quick as I get through the read here of the sponsors that make this podcast possible, I'm going to click the button and it'll be Ryan and I telling big hunting stories, for lack of a better way to say it. But want to let you know that Leupold is the title sponsor of this podcast. They do so much for everything that we do. They support so much about conservation, public land, and they make amazing optics. I'm sitting here in my office looking at this box that has the new SX5 Santium HD 27 to 55 power 80 millimeter spotting scope. And we've got two of them here now, and we've got them rigged up with phone scopes, with our GoPros, with all kinds of stuff. Really an impressive spotting scope. That along with the rifle scopes we always use. So many things that they do, so many products they make, that I hope you go to Leupold.com, check out their stuff, and if you're in the market for optics, sure hope that you'd buy some of theirs. And then we have Orion Coolers. Orion Coolers is, they've been in the podcast pretty much since the beginning, and I've been using their coolers pretty much since they started making coolers. And I'm sitting here looking at one of them, and it's got a lot of wear and tear. It's got many trips to Alaska on it. It's got stickers on it that say frozen, that say heavy, and you can't hurt them, and they perform unbelievably well. Just great coolers. If you want to get 20% off one of these Orion coolers, go to orioncoolers.com and use promo code RANDY, and they'll give you 20% off at checkout by using that promo code. And then we have Go Hunt. You've heard us talk about Go Hunt all year, about how they want you to be your own research consultant, your own tag consultant, hunt consultant, whatever you want to call it. They've just, I can't even tell you how they've changed the efficiency and the time and the amount of knowledge at my fingertips compared to what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And their system is called the Insider. And if you want to get $50 of free credit in their gear shop, which is a serious gear shop, go sign up for the Insider out at gohunt.com. And when you sign up for the Insider, use promo code RANDY, and they're going to give you $50 of mad money in that gear shop. And it is the time of year now that the tags are coming out that we are really using our OnX system. We've done series about e-scouting, digital scouting, desk scouting, whatever you want to call it. And the absolute crux of what we do, the core element to that, is our OnX system. And even if you don't use it for that, out in the field, it's an unbelievable product. I know that I could not hunt the way I do. I couldn't apply for the tags I do if it wasn't for OnX. And I've been using it since they started. An amazing company that is doing so much, putting so much of their financial and other resources towards access. Can't thank them enough. And if you want to save 20% on any of their app products, use promo code Randy, and they'll give you 20% off at checkout on any app product. So with that, Ryan is here looking at me. He's probably wondering, is this guy ever going to stop talking, or are we going to have a conversation, or what the deal is? So you're going to hear a little click here as I add the second mic, and we're going to have a couple hours, hopefully, of mule deer and black bear talk with Ryan Lampers. Thanks for being here, folks. All right, folks, I told you that for this podcast, I was going to have the guy that's been on the top of our whiteboard here at headquarters. I told the crew last winter, put together the list of the most intriguing podcast guests you can think of. And Ryan Lamper's name is way up at the top of this board with a whole lot of votes towards it.
How in the world?
I'm going to take you over in the next room, Ryan. You'll see it. You'll see it's right
Until
there.
I see it, I'm not going to believe it.
And so we were talking about it, and I'm behind on podcasts. We're going to talk about spring bear hunting, and you've been on a fantastic adventure this spring. But
yes,
the reason I'm behind on podcasts is I went on a spring bear hunt when my audience knows I have this weird liver condition, and it really blew up. So I got to bear hunt at Bozeman Deaconess for 4 days. There wasn't a lot of bears to be glassed up and down the halls of Bozeman Deaconess.
When was this?
May 12th through the 14th, 13th, 15th, whatever that.
Wow.
I ended up in the ER Sunday night, and then they kept me in and out of there in the hospital and my doctor through whatever that Wednesday was. So,
yeah. Holy smokes.
I know.
It's not a good start to your bear season.
No, but it's so.
Hopefully they gave you the okay to get back out there.
Well, they did, but with a stern lecture. I think my wife and the doctor conspired while I was over medicated.
She pulled him aside.
Yeah, she said, "Hey, pal, here's some extra money if you'll straighten him out." But I don't really remember that much because I don't know. Have you ever been on morphine?
Never.
I hadn't either. But my toxin levels get so high because of my liver condition that the doctors say it creates this really rare and intense form of migraine called a hemiplegic migraine, and it imitates a stroke. Most people, like Michael, when he saw me up on the mountain when we were trying to get up the mountain, he thought I was having a stroke.
Wow.
And for me, anyhow, the whole, like the left side of my head is just killing me. Left side of my body's all messed up, so I'm stumbling and bumbling, and he probably thinks I'm drunk.
Are you getting like the facial droop and all that kind of thing?
Almost.
Really?
Yeah. You would swear, like my left eye starts sagging down. It's like weird.
Classic stroke type symptoms.
Yeah. And so anyhow, that's why I'm a week late in releasing podcasts. So I hope the audience isn't like, Newberg, you slacker, you've been out walleye fishing is what you've been doing. So
I did see some walleye pics.
Yeah, I know.
Not too far back. Yes,
I know. And you know what
suspect,
happened?
Randy.
The wind and the snow came. We had a week scheduled. And it snowed how many days last week? 4 of the 5 days?
Yeah, we've had kind of a wacky start to our summer here.
Yeah.
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
This is like what I'm used to back home in Washington. This is kind of what I ran away from, and here it is. People are telling me this isn't usual over here in Montana.
Yeah. Well, you moved to Montana, a year and a half ago?
No, not that long ago.
Oh.
So we sold our house this past summer. I stayed there for work and moved my girls out here while we were looking for a house.
Okay.
That was in August, so we could get the girls into the school district here. And then I finished up work and, I say work. It was more hunting than work, I'll be honest.
No, wait a second. You got all these platforms. This is work, Ryan.
It is work now, right?
Yeah.
I can say that with a straight face. So finished that up, and I ended up getting over here. And it's funny, I was over here in October for my annual Montana archery elk season.
Yeah.
I always hunt that week of October for archery elk. Love it. And I just happened to, I wasn't too far away from here in Bozeman, so I swung by, obviously saw the family, and ran around like crazy looking at all these places and properties and things that had been looking at online. I just wanted to get a visual, and lo and behold, in that short few days, I found the place that we'd kind of picked out, and not too shortly after that, we put a bid in on it. So I ended up moving out here end of November.
Whoa.
And we got closed in during November. So I've been here a little bit.
Okay. But your wife is originally from here.
She grew up here.
Yeah.
I've been holding my wife hostage in Washington for 22 or 3 years.
Oh, my
Randy.
goodness, Ryan.
I know.
People are saying, what took you so long, man?
And it's crazy because this place just fits. It feels like home. Back then, Bozeman was small when she grew up here. It was almost small to where everybody knew your business. So you wanted out. And that's kind of where she was back in that time. And she moved out to Seattle, and I was guiding in Alaska. We met up there. And then, it worked out. And like people have heard my wife on your podcast doing the marriage advice. And 23 years later, it took us that long. We'd been hinting at coming out here for a long time. Yeah. Because we come out, we visit. She's got family here in Bozeman, and it's always hard to leave this place because it's just it's great people, it's great country, it's slower pace. Yeah. Which it's hard to explain until you've been to the West Coast and seen the buzz of Seattle or Portland or all that nonsense. Yeah. It was always hard to go back, and we're pretty fortunate that we're able to actually get out here now and stay. So,
well, that's why you can provide absolute commentary on weather comparisons of a late Montana spring comparing to the rainy Pacific coast.
It's very similar.
You've been
as
there.
Of late. Yes, very similar. It's gray. Haven't seen a whole lot of sun lately here, which is commonplace and back home. So no, we're ready. I've been trying to kick a garden off here, and it's not working.
No, too cold.
Digging post holes and trying to sink concrete in wet post holes doesn't work too well. Yeah. So no, I got to wait a few more days and hopefully get some drier conditions.
But in the interim, that's part of what we want to talk about on this podcast is we're going to cover a lot of spring bear hunting. And I gave you I even had to cancel my Alaska. I've got an Alaska bear tag for Kupreanof that ends June 30th. But now but I still...
Now you're really behind.
Yeah, the docs are like, look, you're not doing anything for 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, man. I got a graduation in Minnesota. I got a bear hunt in Alaska, and then I got to go to Oregon for 2 weeks. And they're like, So I've been living vicariously through you and Brian Call of the Gritty Bowman. And who else was with you on that trip?
A real good friend of ours, Jeff Lusk.
Okay.
Yep. He's a Washington boy.
Okay.
Yep.
And were you guys rifle hunting or archery hunting?
We were. That was a rifle hunt that we went on. We contemplated bringing the bows. It was it's one of those things last minute. We're like, we're going all in. Just for the fact that, we didn't know exactly how the hunt was going to turn out in the beginning. Still, we had learned the country a little bit, but it still wasn't real familiar yet. Mm-hmm. So we knew we could possibly be covering a lot of country and figuring things out. And usually a lot of those hunts, it's about dialing it in at a certain point, and you figure it out eventually, and you start making it happen. But no, this hunt that we just had, it just... from the get-go, everything, we had a little snafu at the beginning of it with the little raft incident crossing the river. But after that, it was like every card we played worked out. So,
really?
No, it was a really, really fun hunt for myself and just good times with those two guys. Yeah.
So in a place like Idaho,
yeah.
So I'm going to compare Montana and Idaho for spring bear. Idaho, you can bait.
Yes.
Most of my friends who hunt bears in Idaho, they seem like they're hunting them a couple weeks earlier than we are up here in Montana. Is that...
Seems like, that's fitting.
Yeah, it fits what
Yep.
you guys saw?
I've got a lot of buddies over there, and that seemed to be the case. There were some Idaho bears going down a little bit earlier, and right now is kind of the golden time for over here. It seems like.
Yeah, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but if you go to the Region 3 headquarters here in Montana, they used to have this information. I don't know if they still do, but 10, 12 years ago they had it. And you ask them, what was the date that corresponds with the greatest number of bear harvest? Because in Montana, you got to check them in.
Right.
May 11th.
May 11th.
May 11th.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's way earlier than I would have thought.
Yeah. And I think part of that is that people go out there and they want to get the jump on it because the big boars, they're out right then. But once it starts getting closer to June and the breeding season's getting there, that's when those guys are out moving around.
Yeah, they're moving a lot. Yeah. We had, I'll kind of just tell a side story to our hunt this year. We hunted last year, Jeff and I, in an area in Idaho there, and we learned a lot because it was picking a spot on Onyx there and just going for it. and the country looked good. But we got there and we went there late, schedules, whatever. We got there and the boars were rutting pretty good. Now what we found was it was really tough country to get onto those boars, like catch up to them.
Oh, really? Because they're moving.
They were moving. We were seeing some sows, but with cubs, and they were, running their cubs up trees and snapping at the boars, chasing them off, and just going. We had a hard time catching up to those boars. We're also having a hard time finding the larger, old, mature boars. We find a lot of the mediums, the middle class bears. So kind of our game plan this year was to go way earlier. A lot of last year, well into June, was green top to bottom. Yeah. I mean, it was green at, all the way down, 4,000 feet. It was green to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
No snow left. So there was chartreuse, lush green grass on the tops, all the way to the bottoms. It's really hard to find those sows that, were attracting the boars. So this year, kind of our game plan was let's go a lot earlier, right when those bigger boars are out and just slow moving. Mm-hmm. They're not going too far from those north slopes where they're, saddled up all winter. And man, there was very little green. As we were there, the weather hit us just perfectly. I mean, we got there, the daisies were not out. 2-3 days, the daisies are popping out. That heat is 70-degree heat, and it's just turning lush before our eyes. Yeah. And it was just getting green. And you could just slowly, we were there 8 days, and you could see the green just slowly moving from the creek bed up those south slopes. And it was just perfect timing. So we lucked out on that, but it's kind of our strategy anyway.
Yeah.
Find where those boars were not moving too far from, where they were, hibernating and all that. And just keep them concentrated. And it worked out like a charm. we were finding basins with bears in them, and it wasn't just one. It was, a couple, 3 of them in each basin.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Cool.
And some large boars
as
well.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah.
Those look like some old boys.
Old, yeah. Very old. Be really curious to see what Idaho Fish and Game comes back with ages and all that. But we were not seeing sows this year. We weren't seeing a lot of middle-aged bears. We never saw any cubs with the sows. I think they were still parked up in the snow line. So,
okay.
Still a pretty good amount of snow up top.
Yeah. So when you pick a spot like that, and I don't want to give away any secrets,
sure.
But you said this was an 8-day backpack hunt.
Yeah.
That included, you mentioned some faux pas, some miscalculation with a watercraft.
There was water involved, a raft, and almost tipped over a raft.
Really?
Not quite.
So something tells me when you pick a spot like that and knowing how extreme some of the terrain is in Idaho, you guys probably didn't have any competition.
No, I've never seen a bear hunter back there.
Yeah.
No.
And part of that, and why I say that, is in Montana, we're not allowed to bait.
Right.
Idaho, you're allowed to bait.
Yep.
And do you think there's some correlation to the age class of the bears where, all right, someone's going to carry that big bait bucket a certain distance,
Sure.
but they're not taking a pack full of bait on an 8-day backpack hunt.
No.
So those bears probably aren't going to get plucked out, whatever you want to call it, thinned out because of hunting pressure over bait.
For sure. Yeah, I think, and I'm not real familiar. I've never hunted over bait in my life. I enjoy watching guys and how they do it and able to pick out the older, mature bears. Super cool. I've just always really enjoyed the spot and stalk aspect of it.
Yeah.
And there's so much country in Idaho and Montana combined that I think those boars are just growing old and dying in these places, and they just don't get looked at. Yeah. Now, Idaho, I know a lot of the outfitters are baiting and whatnot, and I don't think they have to go in that far. Mm-hmm. And I've said that about a lot of these bear hunts that we've done over the last quite a few years. Is we're going well beyond where we need to go. But man, does it make an adventure, right?
Yeah.
It's way overkill for bears. We don't have to do these long, drawn-out hikes, big trips. We could tickle the edges of these places and do just fine and see a lot of bears. But I tell you what, some of those old boars that never get looked at, you just got a feeling like nobody's ever seen this bear.
Yeah.
Like nobody's ever stepped foot into this drainage and been hunting bears.
Yeah.
And I have yet to see a bear hunter in a lot of that country. So, yeah.
So do you see many elk in that country in the springtime?
There's some small pockets, not nearly as many as you see here in Montana.
Right.
And I don't know why that is. It's really good elk habitat, but not seeing the numbers like you do here. Here it seems like you're watching elk all day, hoping to see a bear.
Right.
There, if you see a couple of elks, like, oh wow, we saw elk today. Mm-hmm. So not a ton. These are more. I don't know that they're really, bears that are keying into calves getting dropped or anything like that. They're just the areas that we're in. It's just not really winter type. Or not winter type range, but calf dropping type range, and there's just not significant amounts of elk in there. So
that's why I asked the question. Is where I hunt bears in Montana, I'll go out over years and years of being here. I'll make mental note of where do I see cow elk in mid and late May.
Right.
Those are calving areas, and there's probably going to be some bears around the periphery of that. So those are the areas I black bear hunt.
Yeah.
And I can't say that there's any rhyme or reason to it. I see some bears, but I don't see, it's not remarkable success I have, but it's what I do. And so when I see guys like you hike in as far as you did, it's like, wow, I wonder how much bear country they walk past to get there.
A lot. Yeah, for sure. No, you kind of have to put blinders on when you do that type of a hunt, and just know that you have to get here and set a goal of getting here before you even start eyeballing stuff. So, no, it is definitely overkill, and you get that question all the time, like, well, why? Like, why are you going that far? I mean, we could just go drive. Yeah, you could definitely, and I would highly encourage people to do that. But it is a lot of fun. It adds adventure. I love the hunt I love spring bear hunting, period. Mm-hmm. But an added adventure of two buddies going in, it's just a long way. It's hard. It's like the roughness of the country. It's the toughness of the hunt. All that combined with some bears. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Most of our days, Randy, we're not hunting bears. It was packing bear meat.
I bet.
Out and hide.
I saw a picture Brian posted on his Instagram of him laying by a stream with his bare feet soaking in the stream.
Oh man, some of those elevation drops when you're packing, we had 3 guys, but one of the days we had 2 bears on our back, split 3 ways, and we had the hides and the skulls and all the meat, and we scraped those bears clean. Yeah, that's one thing in Idaho. You don't have to take meat in Idaho,
right? Which
is crazy to me, but we take every scrap. It's some of the best meat in my freezer, and it's my family's favorite.
Yeah,
and so you got all that meat, and then you drop 3,000 feet of vertical just to get down.
Oh, that hurts to think about.
And yeah, you're on those hot days where it's 70 and above, yeah, your feet take a beating. And so a nice cold spring runoff type river is pretty nice. And Brian was enjoying it that day for sure.
So when you get there, did you guys, was it, so there's usually two type of backpack hunts. You have a mobile pack on your back and every day you're moving, or you go way back in there, you set up and you hunt from there.
Yeah.
Were you guys moving every day, or did you kind of?
So we had a mobile and a base. We had a very, very minimal base. It just kind of had like where some of our stuff was that we didn't take and take on these little spike out hunts. So trying to go as super light as possible. You know, the first spike out was, I think we figured like 4 days worth. We had 8 days. We wanted to split it in half. 4 days worth of food. That was going to be it. We had to come back at that point. And fortunately, day 2, we killed, we ended up getting 2 bears.
On day 2?
No, sorry. Day 2, we got 1 bear. Day 3, we got a bear.
Okay.
So on day 4, we were packing 2 bears back to camp. So, you know, it worked out just right. You know, with the food, we didn't have to pack a ton of food back.
Yeah.
But no, it was just like the perfect amount to go away and then have to come back and refuel with more food and then go into different drainage. But packing all that bear meat out was just it's a grind. Especially as those big slobs up there. Some of them are just. And Randy, 2 of the bears we got had enough fat on them that looked like a fall bear.
Really?
Enough
Even
fat.
as a spring bear?
As a spring bear, and that's not typical. Like
No.
it was the kind of fat where it was that real white,
Yeah.
real greasy stuff that you see on like berry field bears.
Yeah.
You know, I was able to just take a dozen little cubed cuts of bear fat, put them in a jet boil, and boil the grease out, and use that for a little deep fryer. And it didn't take much. Spring bears, typically, you're fighting to get any grease out of that fat. They just don't have it.
Yeah.
But these 2 of the bears we had, it was almost like they never went in their den, and they had overloaded themselves on blueberries or huckleberries the last fall because they just had reserves. So it was great. Unexpected.
Well, that's good. That makes up for all the times where you had the plan dialed in and you were sure this is it. And you go there and you bust your hump.
You gotta
have
a hunt that always worked out every different direction, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this one was. It was great.
When you lived in Washington, did you do a lot of spring bear hunting there?
No, see, Washington was different. It was a draw only for spring bear.
Oh, wow.
So I did a crud ton of fall bear hunts.
Okay.
Which I fell in love with because the food aspect of a fall bear, it's
hard to beat.
You never get a bad tasting fall bear or even a minimal tasting. They're always good.
Yeah.
They're always... similar to like how you hunt in cabbing areas, there's going to be a bear or 2 around. We're hunting berry fields, and there's always bears around. Sometimes 4 or 5 of them in a berry field, and those bears are just, you're sinking your blade in 5-6 inches to get to the meat, to get past the fat, to get to the meat, to get that meat, and it's just so good. So Washington allowed us to take 2 bears. On the west side, or 1 east side, 1 west side. They kind of had the state divided.
Got it.
So it was more of a fall type thing. I only drew Washington 1 time for spring bear. It was a real bummer, but I had a great hunt, got a good bear.
Yeah.
So, yeah, different, totally different. I'm really enjoying it over here because resident, you just get to buy a spring bear tag and go bear hunting.
And if you don't fill it in the spring, you can go in the fall.
Fill it in the fall. In fact, I'm not quite a resident here yet, so my license, end of this month, I get to buy my licenses at resident Montana prices.
Oh, cool.
So I'm not hunting spring bears in Montana. I'm saving that for a fall berry field bear, northwest corner where there's a lot of berries, and try to go fill that tag in the fall.
Well, even down here in the southwest part, the bears are so predictable in the fall.
Yeah.
You can sit there in glass and you'll be like, all those chokecherries down there, I'm sure there's going to be a bear in there today. And sure enough, you'll see one just pulling the limbs down, just stripping them.
Is that what you look for? I've heard the chokecherry thing. I've never hunted around chokecherries much. So there you're just seeing branches waving around and probably a bear down there scraping it up.
Yeah, sometimes you'll hear them. A lot of times you'll see them. And one of the fun parts, and I noticed that in Idaho, it looked like at least one of those bears was a color phase.
Yeah, two. We had one that was pretty much blonde, kind of a red tint, though blonde. And then my second bear was just a beautiful chocolate.
Yeah.
Chocolate. And the other three were all jet blacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, here in Montana, I see probably more color phase bears in southwest Montana than I see actual black bears. Whereas where I go in Alaska, I have never yet seen a color phase bear.
Not weird.
In southeast Alaska. I know if you get further north, up in the Lynn Canal area, Haines, Skagway, they start getting a lot more color phase bears. But on the islands, they're just jet black.
And it's interesting. In Washington, there's places where you see maybe 50-50, but there's places where it's very rare to see a jet
really?
black. Southeast Washington, most of those bears are cinnamon, occasional blonde. It's far more uncommon to see a black than like a cinnamon or even a chocolate.
Yeah,
which is weird. I don't know why that is, but
it's funny. My dad was a fanatic bear hunter in northern Minnesota. On the bug deflector on his truck, he went and got the old mailbox stickers, and it said Bear Man, and
wrote it on there himself.
Yeah, everybody back there. It's just because it's so thick that the real manner of hunting bears is baiting them, because the spot and stock and flat, thick country for black bears is you're just going on a hike for the most part. And he was fanatic about bears. And as a teenager, I hauled so many buckets of stinky, smelly bear bait, donuts to meat scraps to dead fish to whatever. I never cared if I ever shot a bear in my life. And my dad, his hunters, they never killed a color phase bear. Every bear they ever shot was black. And that's pretty much the norm in the upper Midwest like that. And then he passed away in 2004. And I got to going through a bunch of his stuff and a bunch of his pictures and what he had there. Most of them were bear hunting pictures. As much as he and our time together was mostly deer hunting. Other than when I was free labor for somebody to carry stinky bait buckets. But that's when I really got back into bear hunting. And I've been doing it as a spring bear thing. I started going to Alaska. I started really getting after it here in Montana. And,
it's that Alaska thing has got me really intrigued. I've been seeing, had some buddies that have been up there recently, and boy, they're falling in love with that hunt.
Yeah.
Seeing some really good old age class bears. Jeez. I mean, some guys hunting beaches and some guys hunting logging roads and where the grasses are. So that's really intriguing to me.
Yeah. If I was you, I'd get on that.
Yeah.
The deadline is usually in early December.
Yeah, I know. That's what gets me every time.
Yeah.
I'm not quite in tag putting in mode yet.
I'll send you a reminder, Ryan. So when you said you were on Onyx and I wrote this down as you were saying it, the country looked good.
Yeah.
When you're looking at Onyx, because I do a lot of content about e-scouting for elk with Onyx. When you are looking at your Onyx and you say that country looks good for spring bears, what's good looking spring bear country on Onyx?
Man, there's a few things that kind of jump out at you. Looking in, big places where creeks, rivers, north slopes that are just rough as all get out. Just whether it's windfall or whatever, rocky, craggy, opportunity for caves. Obviously, we're trying to hunt those bears as they're just coming out of the den, and then that south slope on the other side is more open, typically a little bit flatter. I think it seems like wherever there's a good steep creek edge with the water in the bottom, it just greens up faster down there. It's like that's going to jump out at you first. That's where those bears are going to see the green first. And looking for those little spots that are going to have a little salad bowl in the beginning. This year, what had looked so good to us last year, last year we were just a little bit late. This year, we timed it right, like I said, but it had those salad bowls. It had the creeks. It had the northern slopes where the bears were, obviously, it's just great country for hibernating. It's for denning up. Really nasty, rough north slopes. And then those southern slopes are filled with daisies and grasses and green and all the things that, they look for in a salad bowl. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. And then obviously, to find the age class, it's still like to go back to just where people aren't going to go or put in the time to go, or it's a little bit too much commitment to go. Yeah. Those type places. Yeah. So
I would say you being the exception. Most of the spring bear hunting that I'm aware of is way more casual, by the average guy than it is elk hunting. Yeah, elk hunting here in Bozeman or places I travel across the West, for that matter, people put in a lot of effort of where they're getting to for their elk hunt. Right. But for their bear hunt, I think I'm going to leave work at noon and I'll be up glassing by 3 o'clock. Yeah. Yeah. That's more the norm for spring bear hunting.
And honestly, and it's not a bad way to go, because let's be honest, a lot of times 95% of your day is pretty boring, right? The bears just might not be out. They might be there. They just might be 10 feet into that timber line and you're not going to see them. So you may not see those bears till that evening. It might be 7:30, whatever, that evening. So, to commit to spend all day or 8 days where 90% of your day may just be twiddling your thumbs, talking to your buddies and hoping you see a bear. Yeah. It might be a little much for folks. But as much as oftentimes as you see those bears in that last magic hour of daylight, there's a lot of times where they just jump out at you midday. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but from noon, 1 o'clock to 3, 4 o'clock in that time frame, you see a lot of bears moving, whether cruising country, out feeding. I don't know. I don't have an explanation why that is. I don't know if you're the same, but have you seen many in the morning? Because I typically don't. I
just wrote that down. Morning, afternoon, or evening. And in the morning, other than in Alaska, here in the Rockies, I see so few bears in the morning. And and when I'm out hunting, I talk to the crew. I'm like, do you think that's because it's a little bit like fishing, right? You catch a lot of fish on your favorite lure because you have confidence in that lure. Well, I have confidence that from about 2 in the afternoon until any time at dark, there's going to be more bears out. So I spend more time doing that. Yeah. Is that why I don't see as many in the morning? I don't know.
I don't know. I always scratch my head because, if you're a mule deer guy or an elk guy, you're accustomed to getting up early and you're looking for that magic morning hour. And as many times as it feels like I'm beating my head against the wall because I can't get myself to sleep in, whether it's bear hunting or whatever. Most bear days, it's very slow in the morning. Yeah. I can only count on a handful of times where I've seen a bear, and he's usually cruising from one spot back into some timber. But just have not had a whole lot of luck picking them up visually in the mornings, whereas middle of the day, all the way to evening, much more consistent. Yeah. So, I have no idea why. I have no explanation, but it's just something I've recognized.
It mirrors my experience also, and I don't claim to be an expert at it, but...
And that may be, what I was getting at is that may be why a lot of people don't, it's nice to get off after work, get your day done, don't feel like you're wasting all this time looking for some imaginary thing. And then you just go out after work, 4 o'clock, and you get out and you see your bears and pick up your bears and not have to spend all that time back there. But I really enjoy just being back there. Yeah. Even if it's just hiking, putting miles on, and feel like you did something that day, that's we get a lot out of that. Just at the end of the day, you put a crud ton of miles on, and maybe you didn't pick up a whole lot, but it's just all part of the adventure, part of the trip.
Yeah.
Feeling like you accomplished something, I guess.
So this spring bear hunt, is this the first time you've ever done one that's been as documented as this one? Because you did an Instagram story for Onyx with it.
Yeah.
Did you guys film any of it? Am I seeing some of it on Brian's channels?
Yeah, Brian started, he's kind of a vlog type series. Mm-hmm. There's going to be 4 parts. He put out day 1 the other day. Okay. And it was great. I think he did an amazing job on his YouTube, getting a lot of good feedback, a lot of good comments. It's just kind of like, there's no fluff. It's just what happened, how it went down, how we did it. It highlights the hard work, I guess, and just exactly how it went down. And it's really cool. And I think a lot of people have, watched it and amazingly, given us a lot of good feedback and comments and so far so good. But there's going to be 3 more days of that. I think another one shoots out there tomorrow, which is probably
May 29th or whatever. And this is on Gritty YouTube channel.
Yep.
Gritty Bowman or Gritty?
Gritty. I think it's just Gritty YouTube. Yeah. Gritty Bowman YouTube, something like that. But, to answer your question, I have, this is all new for me, the camera type, just photos and, video and all that kind of thing. So I'm definitely not accustomed to it or used to it in any way. Mm-hmm. But hanging around guys like Brian, they're really good at it. My buddy Jeff is amazing at it. He's a really quality photo guy, and it's kind of fun, Randy, when you get to go back and kind of relive your trip that you just had. Yeah. You walk away and you're on this high, and then you get back to work and you're doing your thing, and you kind of get to go back and watch it all over again. It's pretty cool, but definitely something I'm not used to yet. Yeah. Having guys film stuff.
Well, when you were with us in Arizona, you were really a hard guy to find.
Yeah.
Even though you were staying at the same camp area as we were, we didn't say, Ryan, you can come on in here, man, have whatever. And you're really low key, you're really quiet. And I don't know who I was talking to, but whether it was Marcus or Michael, I said, now I can see why he calls his platform Sthealthy Hunter.
Sthealthy Hunter, yeah.
Because even amongst a group of people, you try to be the guy in the back corner.
Oh, I will stay in that corner all... You see how many cameras were in that room, Randy?
I know, and somehow...
Hacienda, everybody had a camera. It was very intimidating.
Even with all of those cameras, you still found a way to not find your way onto many of them.
No, I'm very good at slinking away and sliding past everyone at the dinner table and going to my room. And that was a fun trip, but no, definitely not used to all the cameers and all that kind of thing yet. So,
well, for those of you who haven't seen it, every January we go down and do a Archery Cows, however you want to pronounce it. We don't want to get in an argument with our audience here. And this year, Ryan came down, and I didn't really know him before that. And what was it, the second or third day you shot that ridiculous, crazy big?
That was day 2.
Day 2. Yeah. So until that point, that was our 3rd year. We had 2 years behind us, Ryan. We had not even released an arrow at a deer. You show up. You said, I remember when you got there, you said, man, I've never even seen one of these deer before. No. I have no idea
I think I told you I hadn't even seen a cactus before.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. That was all new to me.
And by the second day, he's got a buck that I don't know how big it is, but of all the coos deer I've seen out in the wild, none of them are even close to how big that one was.
Yeah, sometimes it works out. I was blown away. That was a great trip. New country, new experience. Never had chased those little deer before, but I think it was all the hearing about how tough they were. man, it was very intimidating because you hear about the very low success and how small they are and cagey and this and that. And lo and behold, it wasn't me that made that. It was the weather that day. It was set up to be just perfect. It was a windy day, and just allowed me to get in tight on that buck and pin him at 18 yards. So worked out. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure if you could have documented that one on film, that'd be one you'd go back and relive.
Yes, for sure.
Many times.
I wish I could have. Yeah.
So the other part, and this is, I'll admit to the world that for me, mule deer are just, it's almost there with antelope where it's all about fun and pleasure. And if you told me, Randy, you could hunt this really great unit with a rifle in the rut, or you could go and hunt this so-so unit with your bow and the velvet in August, I'm grabbing my bow.
Yeah.
I know what it is about mule deer. They just, to me anyhow, it seems like whoever was designing animals to be archery hunted, the mule deer in August was the sample was the mold they used to say this animal should be archery hunted.
Right. Oh, you're right.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, you're right. You pegged it. Yeah, it is made for archery, and when they're in velvet like that, whether that's in August or early September. Usually, I mean, one of the things when people ask, like, why mule deer? Like, why? Yeah. What is it about mule deer? And usually the answer is it's where they bring you, where they take you.
Yeah.
Top of the mountain, the timberline, if you're in that type of country, or open places, up in the Tamaracks of Washington, that was always a great place. Some of the most beautiful country you ever get to see in September or August. And it's just an amazing time to be up there. And yeah, let's face it, they're in the open at that time before they've hard-horned. Yeah. So they're visible. They give you daily stalks generally.
Yep.
You get to see what's there. You get to see the biggest, the oldest that mountain has, and they're in the open.
All right. And because of the velvet, they just look that much bigger.
That's right. Yeah. Velvet, and when they're walking away from me, it's double time. But yeah, it is an animal I absolutely love to chase. That early season, that is hard to beat.
Yeah.
Some about a ruddy old hardhorn buck later in November as well. But boy, velvet bucks, whether it's Colorado or Nevada or any state, you name it, that time of year being up there, it can be hot.
Yeah.
But you're seeing them. Typically you're seeing them, and you're just putting a game plan together. You're being patient, and you're whatever it's going to take to get in on that buck. And you always have. It just seems like you're always. You always got something to go for versus bear. Most of your day, you're not game planning. You're twiddling your
solving
thumbs.
The world's problems with your buddy.
Yeah, that's it. So, mule deer hunting is definitely my favorite critter to hunt. And I'll argue with Cody Rich all day about elk versus, I'll probably argue with you as well, elk versus mule deer, but mule deer's definitely my favorite animal.
Yeah, well, I've been out on your website, StealthyHunter.com, and there's some pretty impressive pictures out there, even though you got to dig around to find them. It's like, I'm going to take this Stealthy Hunter idea to the farthest reaches. You're going to have to really dig around on my website to see these pictures of these bucks I saw. But I was in Portland in April. Some guy sees me. He's like, do you know a guy named Ryan Lampert? I'm like, yeah. Well, he had to leave Washington because he killed all the big bucks in Washington, is what the guy said. Yeah. He was from Washington, but somehow he happened to be in Portland at the same time I was. So, was that something that you picked up in Washington?
Yeah,
growing up there.
Yeah, grew up there. I think that's what kind of set the hooks. That was the first animal I ever took, the first big game. My dad took me out. I was 14 when I got my first mule deer, and he turned me loose in a wilderness area of all places. Wild. And I was 14, had no experience, Randy, none whatsoever. I've told this story before on our podcast, but long story short, I ended up getting lost after I tagged my first buck. A 4-point buck, looked like a monster, but it was a spindly little 4-point buck, whatever. And ended up getting him down. Basically sitting there looking around like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
My dad's somewhere. I don't know where he is exactly. It was like, I fired 3 shots in the air and hope he came a-running. But he didn't, and storm moved in, and I ended up getting lost on my first ever 8 hours lost, and ended up getting back there at like 1 a.m. or something like that. But so that was where I cut my teeth on mule deer, and ever since that, at 14, that's been my number one passion, is just chasing them in that high country wilderness areas. Washington, very underrated. Doesn't have the amount of land, like public land, that say Colorado, Nevada, Montana, Idaho has, but it's got some really good rugged stuff, and it kind of brings you back to that same old saying, is like where they grow old and die. There's places in Washington where they grow old and die. People just never see them. And for the longest time, I wasn't seeing hunters, period, in these really hard to get to places. And felt like you had it to ourselves, whether it was me or hunting with my cousin. It was, we felt like we had it to ourselves. Yeah. So some great bucks to be had. I'm seeing a lot of young guys come up in Washington now that are getting after it and finally taking to that real high tamarack. When I picture a mule deer, like in the high country, for whatever reason, I picture those, that fall season tamarack, the leaves or the needles have changed in colors and all that. And that's what takes me up there to the top of the mountain where those bucks are. And that's where I've taken a lot of big bucks in Washington, is in that country. It's rocky, steep and gnarly and nasty. And that's it for me. I love that. I love that high country stuff and far off, hard to get to type places.
Yeah.
So as little folks probably know about Washington, there are some great bucks back there, and I am going to miss it, but I'm not feeling any. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I'm in Montana now.
Is it
some great country here?
Is it a draw there for mule deer, or is it?
No, and that's another good point. Is everything is you can get over the counter every single year. For a mule deer tag, you can hunt whitetail, you can hunt blacktail on the West Coast, you can hunt muleys every year over the counter there. There's draw tags, obviously, like everywhere, but I very, very rarely drew. I drew a couple times in my life. Everything else was just over the counter stuff that you just pick up at wherever.
So you've hunted mule deer in Washington, Montana, Nevada?
Yep, Idaho, Colorado. Yep.
Any place where you just say, I got to go back here?
Yes.
Oh,
should we talk about it?
No, we don't have to.
Okay. Because I think you and I are both going back there.
Oh, really? Oh, well, everyone knows where that place is for me. So,
yeah.
But no, I've been so lucky. I've drawn some of the best mule deer tags in the West. I started doing this apply everywhere thing back in the early 90s. So I've cycled through a lot of points in a lot of places. Had an Arizona strip mule deer tag, had the Kaibab, the Unit 21 in Colorado. You list off some of the renowned places I've been lucky enough to draw tags. And if there's one thing about mule deer, I do enjoy just observing them. Of all the species I hunt, I think between mule deer and antelope in the rut, I can entertain myself for hours just watching them.
Yeah.
And my Arizona strip tag is still in a desk drawer. My Kaibab tag is still in a desk drawer.
Wow.
And I don't mean that in some philanthropic way that I was not there to shoot anything. I was. But when you live in Montana and you have an abundance of just, mostly average mule deer, when you draw a mule deer tag in a place like Arizona Strip or something, you're going to wait around.
Yeah.
You're going to keep passing and looking. And the nicest buck I saw, I passed on the first day. And I'd look at that buck. He just had Score-wise, he wasn't anything. He was a 6x9. He was a tight, compressed rack, but really heavy. It must have been burn area nearby because it was just really dark. And I'm like, I don't want to shoot him on the first afternoon. But, oh well.
Yeah, it's such a bummer when you see the big one on the first day.
Yeah.
It's just rotten.
And I don't think he would, quote unquote, be considered a big one in terms of people who keep score.
Yeah.
But as far as just character, oh man, he had character.
Man.
But
yeah, I think mule deer, gosh, it's really hard to kind of narrow down a state that's your favorite.
Yeah.
You and I both love Nevada. It's phenomenal. I've been very lucky to draw just average tags down there. Mm-hmm. Last year, I hunted Colorado for the first year with my buddy Jeff. And we got down there in that country, and it's always so exciting to see new places. Yeah. As I get older, I try not to go back to old haunts. I want to see new, exciting places, and just kind of, it's always about trying to figure this place out. And, what's it going to take to dial this one in and try to pluck a mature one out of it. And Colorado, gosh, that's a tough state to not look at when you're a mule deer guy.
Yeah.
You get down there, and that country is incredible. The above tree line stuff is amazing. There's a lot of bucks. Even locals saying, "Oh, the numbers are way down." Jeff and I are drooling, like, really? How is that possible?
Yeah, wish we were here when it was good.
Golly, you're seeing just amazing bucks, and that was a lot of fun. And I can't wait to go back there. But Idaho's got some great stuff. One of my favorite states, though, is honestly it's right here in Montana. I come here every year, and that late season in the rut.
Yep.
And it's just made for it. Whether that's trying to pluck one out of somewhere in the northwest corner of Montana, somewhere up there, that's probably one of the ultimate challenges to find a real mature buck.
Yeah.
But if you find one, he may be incredible. He may be that heavy chocolate horn buck you've dreamt about. Or going to eastern Montana, anywhere in the eastern half of the state, and that's where you really get to observe and watch the rut. Mm-hmm. Small bucks to big bucks. And it's just a blast. I know when my daughter finally, goes on a hunt with me for mule deer, well, that's where I want to take her, because she's going to be excited all day. She's going to see
a lot of deer.
Yeah, she's going to see bucks rutting and knocking horns and just a lot of action. So, yeah, much opportunity.
When you talk about seeing new places, we just wrapped up an episode, my Colorado archery deer hunt last year. And I had enough points that I could have drawn a rifle tag, but I wanted to go in November, last half of November, and chase deer with my bow. And so I burned my points on that. And the thing you said about seeing new places, I've driven by this place 20 times, I bet you. And every time I drive by, I'd say, someday I'm going to go there. It just looks too cool. Someday I want to check it out. Well, last year was someday. And because our calendar was messed up, I only had really 4 days of hunting, which the first day was just kind of driving around, getting to know the lay of the land a little bit. But I had so much fun exploring new country on a hunt that I didn't... I almost felt the obligation to get it done because I'd talked about it so much. My wife didn't drive by. Someday I'm going deer hunting there. It's like, just shut up and do it, Randy. Just go. And it was a ton of fun. We just finished the edits on that. It'll be out on our Amazon channel here in early July. And I'll be interested to see what people think. Had 2 really good stocks. Could have shot some bucks. But the other part of that with me is with archery, I get way more excited than I do with a rifle. There's something about that close-up thing, that having to be so much stealthier, the stealthy hunting. Yeah. And I was watching the edit of that, and in both times, these bucks bedded underneath these big flat rocks, right next to them with some pinyon or junipers. And once I could get that rock in my vision, I'd know I'm, 200, 300 yards away. My heart was just boom, 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 boom. And for the next hour of stalking in there, it's like measuring the wind every step. Every step is trying to be so quiet and look back at the camera guy like, man, what are you trying to do? Scare him off? He's probably more quiet than I am, but it's just, you're going in together, and then to get there and have 2 super close encounters was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
It's hard to beat that spot and stock with a bow. It is. I mean, yeah, your heart is beating out of your chest, and you like to think you could control it, right? Just slow it down, but it's hard to do. And there's something about getting in close on muleys, and as you get to within that 40 yards or 50 yards or whatever your range is, or even closer, man, it's hard to control your heartbeat, your emotions, all that thing. And that's where, target panic and, firing shots off in the air, and it just happens. It just happens with people. But it's just so dang exciting and hard to explain. It's really hard to beat.
One of the downsides of hunting them in August in the velvet is they're seldom alone.
Yeah.
And so you got to go in there and defeat however many sets of eyes there are. I did draw the Fillmore Oak Creek unit in Utah in 2016. And I didn't really know what I had with that tag. I only had 4 points. And I'm like, well, my calendar's full. What the heck? The draw odds are terrible. I'll never draw. I'm in Petersburg, Alaska, and I get a notification on my phone. Oh, you just got charged for a credit card charge in Utah. I'm like, oh, great. I finally burned all because I have this ton of pronghorn points in Utah. I look at the amount. It's like, that's not pronghorn. I get online, and I drew my deer tag. Well, go down there, and it's a film we have out on our Amazon channel called Close. And in that hunt, I just said, I want to get close. I want to have this close, intimate relationship with these deer. And the third day, I whiffed on a tremendous 3x3. Every time I see that, Ryan, I'm just, so I'm cliffed out. And I'm trying to get out above them. We called it the bonsai tree. There was some little spruce tree among all these mahoganies. And it looked like a bonsai tree. So we get cliffed out. We got to come back. And I start getting not disoriented from the standpoint of loss, but losing my juxtaposition of where I am to that tree I used as my marker. So I jump down off this ledge, and I look, and I turn to Marcus, I'm like, I didn't know there were 2 evergreens up here. And he's like, I don't think there was. And just then, the buck stands up right below us. He was right under this. We'd come out exactly where I wanted, but I thought we'd come out too soon. And I come to full draw, and Marcus, he squats down. I come to full draw. And as I come to full draw, the buck walks around this big rock, and I got to kind of stand full height. Okay, I can see like the top 2/3 of his chest, so I know the arc of my arrow is, not that rock's not going to be a problem. I whiffed. We never did find the arrow. And from Marcus's lower camera angle, you can't tell where the arrow went, right? Because all you can see from his camera angle is the neck of the deer and up. Gotcha. But I think I shot right over it.
Right over it.
And then 3 days later, another buck, a really nice 4x4, but this gets to the multiple eyes. He bedded by himself. And then there's these 2 small bucks way down the ridge below him. We make this 2-mile loop to get the wind, get up there. And in the interim, one of those little bucks comes and beds right next to him. So I'm doing my thing, getting closer, and the little buck feeds off over to where he'd come from. I'm like, all right, this is it. Well, he starts feeding back, and I'm out exposed on this rock with nothing but some little scrub berry bushes. And he's just looking at me like, oh, no, just give me 10 more yards. Get the hell out of here. So then the big buck gets up, walks around the other side of the tree. mahogany tree, and this little buck goes, and he walks around the mahogany tree, but he just stands there and looks at me. And if that buck comes out behind him, he's going to be like 35, 36 yards. Well, the little buck starts walking right towards me and doing, you know how they kind of bob their head like it's up and down, like it's, and I'm like, he knows I'm here. This is not good. And in the interim, the big buck is over there grazing broadside in the mahoganies. And I'm just like, oh, come on, get the hell out of here. Well, finally the little buck's had enough of me and he kind of bounds off. And I sit up, and now the big buck is still broadside, but he looks at what scared that guy off. So I'm sitting on my rump, which is not an easy position to shoot from. And I'd come to full draw and I shoot. And again, I shot right over the top of him.
Oh, no.
Twice.
Oh.
That's like...
Heartbreaker.
Yeah. So I'm thinking there's something wrong with my bow. So I tell Marcus, the camera guy, I'm like, how could I miss that shot? So I see this crotch of this mahogany out there, and I range it 72 or 73 yards. And these shots, I had them figured at like high 30 or 40 yard shots. So I take a regular broadhead, shoot 72 yards, and I drill the crotch of that tree, right? I mean, within an inch. I'm like, well, obviously it's not my bow. It has to be that excitement, that just everything at once, the sensory overload or whatever. I have no explanation for how I missed those shots, but that's why I archery hunt mule deer.
Yeah.
That feeling.
Yeah, I get it. Your heart just pounds out of your chest sometimes. You feel it in your eyes. It feels like your eyeballs are coming out. But no, that's just it. And trying to control that it's almost impossible. Yeah. It's hard to explain, but it's almost impossible. So no, I get what you're saying. It's and to your point on the smaller bucks busting you, I think the smaller bucks, the surrounding bucks to that one in that bachelor herd, I think they do more damage to us hunters than anything else. They always get us.
I think they have a script. They somehow coordinate where the old guy says, all right, buddy, you go just down over here, and you go over here to watch my backside here. Yeah. And they almost make
it impossible.
Yeah. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
I had a Nevada tag one time, and actually the sensor on our camera, because of the dust, got completely screwed up. The footage looks like you're looking through like a muddy lens. It's really messed up. We never did anything with it. But there was this stag buck. It looked like he had two great big ice cream cones coming up out of his head, like a sugar cone, like a pointy shape. And then he just had like melted antler coming down around his face. Yeah. I'm like, I want to kill that thing. He is such a cool looking buck. But I could not get around all those other little bucks. 2 days we saw them. And you think I could get within 100 yards of that thing? All because of those little bucks.
Sometimes it's not where they put themselves. It's where, all those other, other deer are in that bachelor group that just make it impossible. It's so frustrating.
So I find myself, when I get in that excited mode, I move way too fast. I know I'm moving too fast, but I can't help myself. I'm just like, I can make that next little bush or that next little rock, or I got to get my foot off this gravel onto some sand, or there's always something that in my mind I'm calculating it and going through why I should do this or why I should do that. But I got to be moving too fast.
Yeah, I think that's like I mentioned that Colorado hunt this year with my buddy Jeff Lusk. He's a great hunter. He hadn't done a lot of that type hunting, the archery mule deer, trying to stalk in close with a bow. And he in the end, we got lucky, and we had this, we called it the old man buck. He was just this old gray-faced, sagging belly to this big 3x4. And we'd seen him all week, and he'd kind of hang off by himself, and he just had these mannerisms of just an old buck. Very deliberate, very slow to move, just any little bird flicker, and he would like lock into that thing for 15 minutes and not move his head. And we finally got this buck in a great spot in some oak brush. And Jeff, he was this was his time. This was his stock. He was going for it. And I told him, man, I mentioned slow hand of a clock. Just keep thinking slow hand of a clock when you're at that point within, 150 beyond. Just think about that and replay that through your head the whole time, because it's so easy to try to rush it at that point.
Yep.
And that whole process of the stock gets blown up in those last 30, 40 yards because you just push it a little bit more. And you just have to constantly, I don't think how long, it doesn't matter how long you've done this type of hunting, you have to constantly remind yourself, move like a sloth. Slow hand of a clock. Just keep it as slow as possible, and I think that's key. And that Jeff thinking about that during that whole stock, he got within 18 yards of that buck.
Ooh, wow!
And it just worked like a charm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's very easy. And I remember in the early years, it was always that last little bit. You're like, oh, I just got to get right there, and I can get a shot. And usually that's when it blows up.
Yeah.
Just those last 5-10 yards.
Are you going to do a seminar or a video on that?
Oh, just moving like a sloth.
Yeah. I think I would subscribe or download or pay the whatever subscription fee for that. It's tough. I don't know what to tell people. I blow way more stocks than when I'm archery mule deer hunting, where I'm trying to think how many stocks I even get a chance to release an arrow. And I have a self-imposed 40-yard limit, so it's not like I'm long bombing these things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I get to that 60, 70 yard quite a bit, 80 yards, but I'm not that capable or talented. So for me, I may as well be 300 yards. But.
Right. Yeah, I like preferably, obviously, everybody wants to get close, like really close. For mule deer, my limit is I try to get at 40. I feel like if I get to 40, so dang confident at 40. I feel great at 60 at home targets and this and that. And I'm not the world's greatest shot, but I also, a lot of times I don't even run a stabilizer. So anything with 40 and in, without a stabilizer, I'm still rock solid. When you get it out to 60, 70 without a stabilizer, you notice it.
Yeah.
But inside of 40, I don't notice a darn thing, just practicing without a staby. And so I try to self-impose 40 yards and in.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you got to get that close, it's almost like a slap in the face. You have to slow it down, or you're just not going to get that shot. So, no, it is. I think it's just being diligent about constantly reminding yourself. And it's worked for me, and I'm kind of a slow-moving guy anyway. Slow thinker, slow mover.
I don't know about that. But, well, one of the things that I always... and I don't know if this is good or bad, it allows me to hunt a lot more, is we give ourselves 5 days, and then we're on to the next place. So I know part of what enters my mind at times is, I only got 3 more days, or only got 2 more days. If you draw a tag for archery mule deer, do you give yourself 7 days, 10 days, however long the season is?
Yeah, I really try to go those 9-10 day trips.
Okay.
I feel like even with a few weather days amongst their new unit, learning it's always going to take a few days. You've done your digital scouting and all that, just as capable as you can get with the digital scouting. But when you get there, you'd always figure there's going to be a couple days of cruising country, figuring things out. And then add a couple of weather, you may only end up getting 5 good hunting days anyway. So, fortunately, I've been able to try to put 10-day trips together. Usually 9 to 10 days. That's kind of the magic number. And that seems to give you enough time to where you're not rushed.
Right.
You don't feel like, if I don't get this done right now, I'm never going to get this shot again. So, yeah, obviously the old cliche of patience kills the buck. It's completely true. But you have to have the time to have the patience. So, if your job doesn't allow it, or you got commitments back home and things of that nature that's out of your control.
Right.
I think some of the absolute best mule deer guys out there, they have more time than others. Yeah. It's not close-ended at the end of that. They may have it open-ended and they can just keep hunting if they need the time that it takes to keep pursuing that buck. For example, Colorado last year, Jeff and JR, they had to leave on that hunt. I think that was on day 7, and I still had days there, and so I gotta stay there. And I ended up killing that buck. It was either day 8 or 9 or something like that. And if I wouldn't have had those couple extra days, I would have never filled that tag. But fortunately, I did, and I didn't have a commitment there. And otherwise, that would have been a completely different hunt. Yeah. But I was able to never get reckless on a stock. I could see that buck every day. Saw him for 8 days in a row. Whoa. One day he disappeared, and I could never pick him back up. But he always put himself in a just not a great spot for stalking. Up against a cliff, it would have taken climbing gear and ropes to get down there. There was just no way to do it with the wind. So every day I'd watch him. And I did not make one stalk on that buck in 7 days. And then he finally put himself up against this brush line, a little bit different position, and that was the day. And that was the day to go fast and get in, and it worked out that way. But I feel like anymore, especially a good, old mature buck, you're only going to get one shot at it. Yeah. And you're probably not going to see him again if you blow it. So just taking the time, really, really being diligent about watching that thing and making sure he makes the mistake and you don't. Yeah. So his mistake is going to be putting himself on the other side of that boulder, in a direction where the wind's not going to get you and all that. So that's on him, and that's kind of what I look for now. It can be boring just sitting there watching a buck for a week straight. Yeah. And just waiting for one mistake on his part. Because you get to a point where you're like, maybe I got a 50% shot on this one. Should I go for it? Mm-hmm. And in my experience, it typically doesn't work out. Yeah.
So to that point then, you look for, hey, I need 80% comfort, 90% comfort, 100. Right? Yeah. Is there a number in your mind? It's subjective.
Highly likely I can get in on that buck if he doesn't move at that point. I really like to be confident that that's a spot I can get him. Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, if I was rushed, I would definitely, if I only had 1 day left, I would take a 20% chance that I get in there and he gets up and feeds my direction. But having those days to burn, patience, it's cliche as it sounds, it absolutely has worked for myself and others in these backcountry, high country scenarios with early archery bucks. And that's just a lot of patience and waiting them out and letting them make that critical error that's going to put you in a spot where I think so, in the early years I can remember going through a season and there was stock, blown stock, blown stock. And now very, very, very few stocks on a hunt. Mm-hmm. In Colorado, I did 2 stocks. One of them was half-hearted because I really wanted to go back to this buck. And then that stock. And it's very few stocks now, but I think that opens up the window to get a more quality buck, an older age class buck. Versus back in the early years, it was there's a buck, I'm going to go for it. And more likely than not, it didn't work out. Yeah. Now it tends to work out, and that's only because you're just making sure that you have the advantage and you're not hoping that you can get in, you're expecting to. Right. So, that type of thing.
Hope versus expect or pray. Yeah. Hope versus pray, right? Or no versus hope.
Yeah. Whatever. Getting reckless, that's a kind of a recipe for disaster. Those old bucks, they're pretty smart. And, they'll get you pegged in no time.
It is amazing how smart they are. Yeah. I can see why a lot of mule deer hunters desire to have the rut in their favor, because that as smart as some of those old bucks are, that really is
the great equalizer.
Yeah, exactly. The table all of a sudden gets a little more level.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And guys who can do it consistently with a bow, and my hat off to them.
Yeah.
I love doing it, but I don't do it consistently.
No, there's some really, really, really good hunters, locals around here. Brian Barney's one of them. He's a local guy at NS here, and guy's just exceptional at his craft. And he's one of those fellows that just practices a ton of patience, and he'll stick with a buck and watch it the same and just watch it until he gets that. One of his sayings is along those same lines. It's just not being reckless. Same thing. It's like it's not like the early years when he first started. It's just being way more cautious and kind of expecting to get in there versus hoping to get in there.
Yeah.
So I kind of pay attention to all those guys like Barney that have done this as well. And it's very similar. Patience always comes up with these guys that do it a lot, and they've had a lot of experience. So there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna work on that patience.
Work on your patience,
Randy. But I don't know. There's a saying someone told me one time at my CPA firm: "Beware of an old man in a hurry." Now that I'm 54, I feel like I might be getting closer to old man side of the calendar, and that's maybe all right. Slow hand of the clock.
Slow hand of the clock.
All right.
Or sloth-like, whatever you
Sloth-like.
prefer.
I think the sloth-like, I can envision that better, being like a sloth.
Well, I use that word because my wife, sometimes I move so slow. She's like, gosh, you move like a sloth, She yells at me. I've heard it so much, I've kind of taken to that word now. I kind of like it. So I'll take it. If it helps me get mule deer, I'll take it.
Yeah. So, not that this is ever a fair question, but if you were said, all right, Ryan, you get your chance. You only get one tag this year, but it can be any tag you want it to be in any season, in any state. Whew. Too hard?
Yeah. No, I think I would love to take that early archery back to Colorado.
Yeah.
I would go 50-50 with back to Colorado or back to Washington State.
Wow.
I really love that high country of Washington State. It's difficult. It's not above tree line. It's smaller areas. But, man, I am falling in love with Colorado now that I got to see it last year. And that was just a crud ton of fun. So I'd have to go with one of those.
Okay.
Yeah. Early archery, mule deer, Colorado or Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it would be somewhere in the Great Basin. I don't care if it's Nevada, Utah, Southern Idaho. Yeah, if it was mule deer.
Yeah.
But if you ask me that of any tag of any species, oh boy.
I know you gotta love an antelope.
You've got all these pronghorn on the wall, right? That's probably my weakness is pronghorn.
There are way more pronghorn in this room than anything else.
Yeah. That's people note that as quick as they come in, and I'm like, well, if you came to my house, my wife calls it the herd.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what is it about pronghorn for you, Randy? Is it the table fare or is it the hunt itself?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I absolutely love to eat them. They are my favorite food. Well, I've been lucky to draw 2 free-range bison tags, and I had bison burgers over the Memorial holiday every day, all Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And I was commenting to my wife that as impractical as it is to think I'm going to have bison in my freezer all the time, I think that it has slightly surpassed pronghorn as far as my favorite table fare. But as far as hunting, there's just something about pronghorn and the places they live. And if you dig deeper rather than just, oh, there's one, boom, shoot them, and you try to learn them, study them, realize how resilient they are, but yet how fragile they are due to certain climatic conditions and certain changes to their habitats. I just have a ton of respect for them. They're overlooked, they're disregarded, they're uniquely American. There's, they really have no peer, there's no other horned animal that sheds every year like pronghorn does. And they're fast and they're beautiful. And when I see them, I just start salivating. And I wish I could explain it, Ryan. So many people ask me that. And I spend most of my time elk hunting every year. If you looked at the amount of stuff I do, I spend more time elk hunting. And don't get me wrong, I love elk hunting. And I love a bull bugling and all that comes with that. Or seeing a bull, a bachelor group bedded in a basin and trying to figure out how we're going to get up there and get in on them. But I don't know.
I've heard, I can tell just listening to your podcast over the years about your love of antelope, and I've heard you talk about the food aspect of it being one of your favorites, and I've been curious if the actual hunt itself was really high on the list, or if it was the food, because I don't have that bug yet for antelope. I just haven't. Didn't have them in Washington, and I haven't chased them a whole lot, but I don't have that bug yet. So it's fascinating. Yeah,
and if you draw an antelope tag in most places in the West, the odds are you could be done by noon the first day. If it was all about filling the tag. And I went when I got my first couple pronghorn tags. First one I saw, boom, and I was so excited. And then as I learned more about them, I'm like, well, looking at body sizes, comparing them. Okay, I think that buck, he's only a year and a half, or he's 2.5. He's about the same size as the does. And then you start looking at him. Oh, look how much bigger he is than this one, and body size. And then, all right, boy, look at the head. That thing's got a mule head on it. And then for me, it's either got preferably ugly from an antler or a horn configuration, or big. And ugly can constitute so many things, and big can constitute so many things. And maybe it's got big prongs, maybe it's got big mass, maybe it's whatever. That's part of how I force myself to not get excited and just shoot the next one I see.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So by doing that, I get out there and I get to see some really cool places. Like if I draw a Wyoming tag, I never go opening weekend. I always go the last week of season or middle of the season, just because everyone's got it out of their system, they're home, and now I have the place to myself.
Yeah.
And to me, the prairie/desert country of America, of the West, of the Great Basin, of Wyoming, Western Colorado, Eastern Montana, all those places, some of the most beautiful country. People think of the majestic Rockies, and here you look around where we're sitting right now, it's like, whoa, that's beautiful. But there's a different kind of beauty to watching the sunrise out on the sage flats or the sage foothills that hard to explain, but it's fun for me.
Yeah, I completely get it. I feel like that when I'm chasing mule deer out in that similar type coulee desert type country, whether that's here in Montana or Nevada or whatever. It's almost like a feeling you get, like you're just out west. Yeah. It just has more of a feel to it out in that sage flats. And something about traipsing around in coulee country that's just fun. I mean, it's usually not like wilderness, but it feels wild out there. And you get to see a lot of animals. Let's face it, when you're in that type of country, you actually get to see them. They're not behind trees all day.
Yeah. And you can see a long ways. And with pronghorn, that is the other part. And I think part of where my pronghorn passion comes from is when my son was really young. I always was aware that you can possibly ruin a young hunter by making it boring, pushing him too hard. And we'd go antelope hunting, and he would be out there finding trilobites and finding this rock, and oh, Dad, look, there's some antelope. And you're always seeing something. It's never slow. Even if it's 3 miles away, you can make out those little white dots. Oh, let's go check that out. And so I think there's still that connection to when my son was young, even before he could hunt. him traipsing along on antelope hunts and just the fun of what that represented and how you kind of make the whole loop as you get older. It's like, man, now I feel like I'm back 14 years old again. The wonder of it all. So
it's interesting you say, I've heard that people's opinions or theories on how to not wreck a child, getting them into the what we do. And you always wonder if you spoil them, if that's going to turn them off to it. So you worry about that. If it's too slow, is that going to turn them off to it? I try to wrap my brain around that one a lot, raising 2 girls now. But my daughter's first hunt, I took her on a bear hunt, and I wrestled with that one. Is this going to be too hard? And so one of the things I did is I had her do just on the truck ride up to the trailhead, do a little scavenger hunt list. So I didn't know that the bear hunting was going to be good. I didn't know if we'd even see a bear.
Yeah.
But I knew the area had some goats. It's going to have huckleberries. It's going to have grouse. It's going to have fish. So I just said, okay, we're going to find a feather, pick the coolest rock, or eat a huckleberry, see a goat, catch a fish. It was just cool. This little treasure hunt list that she could carry with her pack, and hoping that she wouldn't get too bored on that first trip. And lo and behold, it was 10 miles in. I didn't know that we'd make it there that day.
Whoa.
We got in there 10 miles. She was 8 years old. Got in there. That evening we saw a big old billy goat. Got a picture of that. She got to pick her huckleberry. She found feather. Yeah. She found these things. She knocked off a bunch of things on that list. And that just kind of kept her mind looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
And then we had this weather system come in, and the next day it was really nasty in the morning. And so we kind of got pinned down in there, but we kind of added a couple things to her list. So she's excited to get out of that tent and go find these things. And by day's end, we had seen a bear. We couldn't get to it. It was just going to be a little too dangerous to get her down through these rocks. Mm-hmm. And then we found another bear. I ended up getting this bear. And that girl of 8 years old, and how we got that bear, it was just a crazy story. But we got to cut it up there. She knocked off all her list except for catching a fish. That's the one thing we didn't have time for because we were cutting up bear. The lake was there. It was close, but we just didn't have time. She did 20 miles in those 2 days.
Wow.
And she was 8. And she packed a little bit of bear meat out, and then I ended up taking her pack at some point. But she had just a ton of fun. And it just it worked out amazingly well. But I think that's something maybe, if you're worried about taking them on kind of a slower, bear hunting can be very, very slow, even on a fall hunt for berry-fed bears. That was one of the things that worked amazingly well for myself.
That is so cool.
Keep them just doing something or looking for stuff and that, no, she thinks pretty dang fondly of that first trip, even though it was 20 miles in 2 days.
That's crazy.
Amazingly well what
not a lot of 8-year-olds would be up for that.
No, she's a strong one.
Huh.
So
tell me before we get moving into the where everyone can find Ryan and Dr. Hillary. We'll get to that towards the end, but you got something coming up here in late June called you and Cody Rich are doing what's called the Western Hunting Summit.
Okay. So we've got the Western Hunting Summit coming. It's an event that we're kicking off this year. Cody Rich, myself, here right in Bozeman, down the strip here, Big Sky Archery. Gabe was very nice to give us his venue to hold this event. And what it is I've got some amazing presenters to come in. You're on that list of presenters.
Not
Randy.
The amazing list. I'm just on the list.
Top of the heap there. We got Randy Newberg to come to this event and talk to folks. So the point of this event is to bring guys in that whether they've struggled for a couple years maybe they're just getting into hunting. Maybe it's maybe it's an older gentleman or gal that's just hasn't found success yet or hit that adult onset to hunting, trying to cut the learning curve by a couple of years, take away a little bit of the frustration. I know for myself, I was very fortunate growing up to have a dad that hunted. He got me into it. He was my mentor. And then met a gentleman in Idaho that just helped me with elk hunting amazingly. I don't know how many years he cut off of my learning curve by showing me the way. I spent 3 weeks with this guy. And that helped me a ton. And I know just with questions I get from younger guys, there's a lot of frustration when they just can't find things, or they're just in that stage where they're trying to figure things out. So the point of this event is to cut the learning curve in 2 days, or by 2 years in 2 days. It's a 4-day event for some. We call it the adventure. If you want to do 4 days, there's going to be a big hike in the beginning on Thursday. This is being held June 27th through June 30th of this year. The Thursday starts with a big old hike. Brian Barney, Cody Rich, and myself, and a couple of the other presenters are going to go take guys on a big old overnight hike. We're going to hike in 10 plus miles into some really cool country, look for critters, and spend the night up there, campfire, good food, just hang out and just tell stories. And any questions or anything, we're just going to be there to answer and just have a great time and just kind of go over gear. It's going to be a fun 2 days, coming out that next day on the Friday, and then going to have a big, it's going to be like a barbecue. We're doing a kind of a wild game cook thing out at Cody's place. We're going to do a mountain tough workout. They're a place here in Bozeman. They do workouts. Group of 4 guys, tough individuals. They got a program for fitness that it's kind of a lifestyle, but they target hunters and getting them in shape, ready for the backcountry. Good folks. And then got Dave Brinker's coming in that night. He's going to do some music for us on Friday out at Cody's place. Saturday is when we bring in the big hitters. Well, you. Randy's coming. We got Brian Barney. He's going to be talking backcountry, all the things that he's learned over the years. I've got Cody Rich talking. I've got Mark Livesey is coming in. He's going to do his digital scouting. We're going to talk about that. He's a whiz at it. I've got Mountain Tough coming in. They're going to talk about their fitness program. They're going to talk about things you can do to get ready for whether it's elk hunting or whatever hunting you're doing. A buddy of mine, Dan Staten from Elk Shape, he's coming in. He's going to talk about discipline and, what he gets out of elk hunting. He kind of compares that to how he lives his life. And we've got some really good quality speakers coming in to talk to people. And the whole point of this is to, cut that learning curve and try to hopefully educate and inspire people to get out and do the things that you and I love to do and do it in a way that isn't so frustrating. Yeah. So,
well, I wish that course would have been there when I started elk hunting. I needed about a 10-day course to cut 10 years off my
one of the guys, we've got the elk nut, Paul Medell. He's coming in as well. I forgot to mention Paul. He's an excitable guy. He loves talking about elk. And I'm sure you're going to be getting bombarded with a lot of questions about elk hunting. People trying to figure out how to eliminate some of the frustration with that. So,
when I start talking or answering questions, I think we need a disclaimer. This advice is not even worth. Of course. How would I say this? The advice isn't worth the time you spent sitting here to listen to it, probably. So where can people find out more about the Western Hunting Summit?
So you can just go to westernhuntingsummit.com and all the information is on there and kind of a list of the speakers and how the event's laid out and all that type of thing.
Okay. I saw it also on your sthealthyhunter.com website.
Instagram feed, our Hunt Harvest Health. There's all links in our bios to get you there, and it'll take you right to the site itself.
So where can people hear your podcast? Is called Hunt Harvest Health, right?
Hunt Harvest Health podcast, where my wife and I chip in on occasion, Randy. I talk a little bit of hunting, but you know my wife. She's very smart. She's very good. She's much more well-spoken than I am, and she does a great job. And she talks about health a lot and things that are actually important, with all these things that we deal with, especially as hunters, that whether it's inflammation to you name it, she goes into detail on a lot of that on a lot of the podcasts. Yeah. So a lot of health talk on there, and then mixed in with a healthy dose of hunting as well.
Yeah. So, well, she's a physician, so
yes,
that advice is worth way more than they're going to pay for it. Now, my podcast people are going to start sending me invoices for the time I wasted for them. But, so Instagram, what's your handle?
My handle is Sthealthy Hunter. So Stealthy, STH. So ST Healthy Hunter.
ST Healthy Hunter.
And then Hunt Harvest Health is our IG handle.
So what's on the list for this fall? You said that you're going to Nevada. You didn't include Colorado this year. Weren't able to get a tag. Of course, the draw will be out next week, so you probably don't know. But.
Yeah, I just went for a point this year, and I'll get a point this year, and I'll go hunt it again next year with a point. I think just early archery somewhere. Nevada is coming. Drew that. Got some really good hunts. I drew a Wyoming elk tag this year. It'll be a first time ever hunting Wyoming. Really excited about that.
Did you have a ton of points?
0 points. No points. Put in for the first time. Washington is so far away. I just never. It's like that one state where I just never gained a point.
Right.
And now that I'm a couple hours from Wyoming, I kick myself. I was like, if I would have known, but put in this year and I drew the darn thing. So really lucky. So I'm going to dedicate a lot of my time to that September Wyoming hunt.
Yeah.
And then
cool.
Try to do all the gamut here in Montana as well. And I've got a really good hunt in Idaho for mule deer as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. Cool.
That's just an over-the-counter fun hunt.
Yeah. Well, you'll be telling big stories. Just to be careful how much you tell Brian Call. Sorry, Brian. I just had to do that to you. I've been on Brian's podcast a couple times. He's been in our Arizona elk camp now, or Coos deer camp 2 years in a row. Yeah, 2 years. I don't know if we're going to invite him back this year. I don't know. He shot a deer last year. My feelings are hurt.
Yeah. Great. That means I'm not invited back either.
Well, I shouldn't have said it that way. Then you're going to feel like you're not welcome.
Him and I tagged out on the same darn day last year.
I know, it's crazy. It's those kind of things now at this point in my life. If it's not just a whole pot full of fun, I'm probably not that interested in it. Because there's so many fun things out there to do that are just almost like your parents put you in the ice cream room with all the chocolate frosting you wanted and said, eat until you can't eat anymore. It's that kind of fun.
Yeah.
And so now I used to be interested in, pushing myself and trying to do this, trying to do that, challenge this, challenge that. Now it's just like, you know what? I've only got so many years to hunt. I want to see how much fun I can have. Just flat out fun. And that's also part of what the pronghorn thing is. Pronghorn funning, there's no negatives. There's none of this blisters, misery type, whatever, type 1, type 2, whatever type fun they call it. No, it's just fun.
Just fun.
Yeah. It's like when you were a kid and you sat on the dock and you caught bluegills, you could see eating your worm down. It's that kind of fun.
See, bluegill fishing, perch fishing, that's Arizona hunting. that from what I've seen, because that's just fun. Because it's not just deer hunting; it's
everything.
All these other things. There's birds and the rabbits and everything else. So.
Yeah, but I am going to get even with them this year. I got a few points in Arizona, and since I didn't kill a buck in January, that means for the calendar year, I'm still good. So I'm burning my points for a rifle.
There you go.
Coos deer.
Nice.
So I'm going to be down there in late November, early December with a rifle. And then I'm going back in January because the new calendar year lets me go again.
That's right. Oh, that's a great way to do it. Yeah.
I'm sure that there are no deer in jeopardy. Their lives are just fine with me walking around with a bow. I'm not Ryan Lampers. Yeah. I'm not the Stealthy Hunter. So they see me coming, they probably are like, here comes that knucklehead again.
I'm just looking forward to going and chasing those jackrabbits. I got to get some of those, and more importantly, the coati. It's that darn coati. That's on my hit list. I'd love to get one.
Yeah, I could not believe Brian got that one 2 years ago. Oh man, I'm so envious.
Yeah,
and I told him, I said, if we see any, I get dibs on them. Well, wouldn't you know? He sees them when he goes on a deer stalk.
Yeah,
and then the next day I go
attacks him.
Yeah, and then I go on a stalk for some coatis, and the whole troop ends up over by him, and he shoots one of them. It's like, that's what I get for coveting, wanting to be the, what is it? Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor. Well, that's my punishment for coveting Brian's coati.
There you go.
So, yeah. But it was a ton of fun. All right, and there anything else that we want to tell the world here?
No, not really. No, I really appreciate you having me over here tonight, Randy.
Yeah.
Last time we met up, we were eating
muskrat
tacos, spitting kneecaps on our plate. It was great.
My wife watched that video. She was so mad at me. How could you not strain those kneecaps out of there? I'm like, I didn't know. I thought Marcus was in charge of the cooking. I thought they just dissolved.
Yeah, I had no idea. At first, I bit into one, and I hadn't even heard about the kneecap thing yet. And I was like, I wonder if it's just kind of like an oddity. Maybe I hit a bone or something. I got another one. And then I think I heard Marcus talk about the kneecaps. I'm like, oh, yeah, there's kneecaps. So apparently, there's a bunch of them in there.
Yeah. Well, next year, we'll focus. We'll go trap some beaver.
Yeah.
And we'll have beaver tacos or pulled beaver sandwiches or something. A beaver's big enough. You could.
You don't need 28 of them to fill the pot.
Right. Exactly. So you probably aren't going to have to salvage kneecaps and every other piece just to try and fill the pot.
Yeah.
So,
there you go.
But
no, yeah. Again, I appreciate you having me out here, Randy. This is fun, and
I appreciate you doing it. And we'll. I think what we should do is. Either in Arizona or somewhere else or after season, we should have a follow-up of here's what we talked about last May. Here's what really happened since then. And
I think we'll both have a lot of stories after this season. It sounds like we both got a bunch of hunts to be excited about. So,
there'll be no shortage of stories. I can't say there'll be any more meat in the freezer. I hope there is, but I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are. Your Wyoming elk hunt. Yeah, I love elk hunting in Wyoming.
Oh, gosh, I've seen your shows on Wyoming, and I've heard Corey talk about them, and everybody says it's great. The country's great. It's good numbers. It's going to be fun. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, good luck on that hunt.
Yep.
Well, folks, thanks for listening. Appreciate you hanging around. Sorry I'm a week late on this podcast, but I hope that you'll give me one mulligan this year. We'll try not to be late again going forward. Thanks for listening.